The Rocky movies have been a huge influence on my life. I love them, so does my wife. Hey, that rhymed! We watch them every year and have hours-long conversations about the franchise, the individual films, or even just particular scenes. So believe me when I say I know these films and love them as much as any sane person can. Recently, I came across a comment on the iconic character by YouTuber Critical Drinker, and it gave me pause.
The Rocky we knew from the original movies was the very epitome of the heroic underdog. A tough, determined fighter who wasn't the biggest or the strongest or the most skilled, but always rose to the challenge through sheer grit and willpower. He was a trusting, optimistic kind of guy who tried to see the best in everyone, and as a result, he usually brought out the best in them. He taught whole generations of kids the value of hard work, resilience, and always getting up no matter how many times life knocked you down. But flash forward to Creed and he's now a lonely old man, estranged from his son, mourning the loss of his wife Adrian, and facing up to the remainder of his life with no real sense of purpose. Even though he faced and overcame literally all of these problems in Rocky Balboa like 10 years earlier, his despair is so complete that when he gets diagnosed with cancer, he refuses treatment because he simply doesn't want to go on living, and it's only Adonis Creed who gives him a reason to go on. Fuck off, Creed. You don't get to do this to The Rock. You don't get to step in at the 11th hour and totally retcon his personality to fit the needs of your shitty fanfiction story. Rocky was a character entirely defined by his determination to keep going, no matter how hard life hit him. To always go one more round. It was literally the driving force behind every single movie, and now it's forgotten about so that Rocky can become some kind of pathetic charity case for Adonis to help out.
While I intensely agreed with some of his sentiments, like the need to show that hard work and determination mean a heck of a lot and should be encouraged, one thought kept nagging at me. I think he misunderstood the main character. So, with Creed 3 coming out, I thought I'd explore this quote and see if I can explain why I think the Critical Drinker got Rocky wrong. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not here to get cheap clicks screaming bile at a popular YouTuber. I actually have a lot of respect for the Drinker as a YouTuber and as a published author, even if I don't always agree with him. It's just that in this case, the disagreement hit very close to something I love, and I wanted to address what I think is a woeful misunderstanding of an iconic character. If he or anyone else wants to have a discussion on it, hey, that'd be awesome. Maybe I'm way off base. I'm willing to admit that. Heck, knowing the way things usually go, Mauler and crew will probably rip me to shreds in a 4-hour-long discussion of why my video and my points are stupid. And that's okay too. It's okay to disagree and critique. That's what I'm here to do. So, anyways, to my mind, Rocky has never been the guy who gets up and fights because it's what's right, or because he possesses his own inner strength. Rocky, to me, has always been a man who will lay down and give up without the people around him to give him that strength. To give him heart. His heart is his core, and the people around him are the ones who give him strength or steal it away. Steal that heart away, you break the man. In the original Rocky, we're introduced to him as a bum never was, fighting in sleazy 2-bit rings for a few bucks and getting his butt handed to him by another never could be. It's only by sheer luck and by reason of his own temper that he manages to pull out a last-second win. He's nothing, a nobody, reduced to breaking thumbs for a tin-plated loan shark, living in a sleazy dive and being mocked by pretty much everyone. His only real friend, if you can call him that, is Pauly, who is himself an abusive bum. Pauly's sister is the bookish Adrian, who works at the local pet store. For some reason, Rocky has a crush on her and goes to the pet store every day to tell her lame jokes and ask her out. When he's not doing that, he pretends to train at Mickey's gym, and basically he's got nothing to live for. This is not a man who gets up and fights against all odds. This is a man who has given up and accepted the odds that are stacked against him. When the reigning heavyweight champion Apollo Creed needs a chump to fill a card spot, they pick Rocky's name out of the register because of his stage name, the Italian Stallion. But here's where it gets really interesting and elucidates my point. Rocky agrees to the bout, but you can see he's terrified, though he'd never tell anyone that. He's too much of an old-fashioned type of guy. But you can see the hopelessness in his eyes. When Mickey, the wizened gym owner, comes offering to train him, where before he had rejected him, Rocky is indignant, kicking Mickey out and borderline giving up right then and there, knowing that his chances of success are none, but still too proud to accept the help of the man he looks up to as a father. Until he does. This one scene where he kicks Mickey out, despairs, swallows his pride, and then rushes after him to gratefully accept his help is not only wonderfully acted and shot, but it encapsulates everything that Rocky is. He is proud, he has a big heart, he is prone to emotion, and without those who give him heart, he is nothing. Throughout the rest of the first movie, this is all played out wonderfully. His growing relationships with Adrian, Mickey, and Pauly give you a sense of the man more than his training montages do. He needs them, and they need him. To quote Rocky himself, they fill gaps. In the end, he does go the distance against Creed, not only because of his grit and inner strength, but because of those who gave him said strength. Because he has Mickey, Pauly, an entire city, and especially Adrian, giving him heart to go just one more round. He believes in himself because they believe in him. And when he stands battered and bruised at the end of the fight, he doesn't even listen for the decision, but calls for his everything, his soul, his Adrian. And the film ends wonderfully with them simply holding one another and saying, "I love you." In Rocky II, we find the rockster flying high and then brought low. He's bleeding money and has to go work in the same butcher's warehouse where before he had been triumphant. When offered a chance at a rematch with Creed, he demurs, only for the sake of his love. He wants the glory, but his family means more to him, though it means suffering the slings and arrows of personal and public shame. He fights against being ordinary, and yet he fights for his family by working hard to be what he sees as a good family man with a steady job. When that job dries up, though, he agrees to the rematch for the money and out of a sense of pride. But at a cost. When Adrian goes into a coma giving birth, he's left adrift. His child and the woman who has been his entire reason for living are at death's door. Nothing else matters but his love for his family. So what does he do? He stops training. He stays by her side, reading to her, holding her hand, refusing to even see their newborn child until, against all hope, she revives. He lays down his chance at glory to fight for something else. His heart, his love, his Adrian. Because Adrian is the most important thing in his life. The most perfect realization of this is when Mickey, hardened old sot that he is, comes to say his piece in the chapel, challenging Rocky to get up and train and fight Apollo. And then Mickey just sits and prays with his friend. Mickey gets it. He doesn't like it, but he gets it. The Rocky and Adrian love story is one of the most perfect love stories that has ever been put to film. Two disparate people with totally different outlooks find a way to fill a hole in one another's lives and complete one another. And they constantly challenge one another. And it's not until Adrian regains her strength that Rocky finds his. When she tells him to win, he is renewed, reborn, and goes on to glory. Because the soul of the man is the people who fill his heart. And it is in Rocky III that he has that heart stolen away. Rocky III is often forgotten, and perhaps the drinker forgot this film and its message. In this film, Mickey dies. Spoilers! Mickey had been protecting Rocky from true hard fights, and when Clubber Lang comes along with a real challenge, Mickey pushes him off, knowing that Rocky has become comfortable and lazy with easy victories. You see, Mickey has given The Rock all he has, and knows that his protege no longer hungers for the fight. Rocky has become complacent. His family and friends have become complacent. There is no reason or urge to fight, and so Rocky, not having anyone to truly drive him once Mickey dies, falls into and is unable to climb out of a hole of despair. Not even Apollo Creed can shake him out of his apathy. Essentially, he lays down to die. Until Adrian, his one true love, comes to him and slaps him back into life. She believes in him. She is unshakable in her support of him. And if she believes, then Rocky believes in himself. Then and only then does Rocky rise from the darkness and into the light to take on his enemies, both personal and physical, to win the day. I think by now you're starting to see a pattern. Rocky is nothing without those who love and support him. He will always lay down before great odds, despite what Sylvester Stallone tried to preach in Balboa to his reticent son. But we'll get to that soon enough. Up next, we have Rocky IV, which I know many consider to be the silly son of the franchise. But I have a special place in my heart for this movie, and think that in spite of the goofy Murica aspects, it still tells a compelling story that stays true to the characters, and again, shows that Rocky needs his loved ones to go the distance. Again, Rocky has a loved one stolen from him. This time, it's Apollo Creed, who dies in the ring at the hands of the seemingly invincible Russian champion Ivan Drago. Rocky wants revenge and goes about it the only way he understands, by challenging Drago to a match. Adrian fears for his life and refuses to support his decision to fight. Angry, scared, and lost, Rocky tries to run away from his feelings, even going to a desolate foreign country to train. But something is lacking. He is empty inside. He has the will, the strength, the skills, but not the heart. It's not until Adrian comes to stand by his side that he finds the inner strength of his convictions and truly gives his all, and we get that glorious training montage that made everyone want to get into shape. Until they didn't. New Year's Eve resolutions are kind of fleeting, aren't they? But again, the entire point of the film comes down to a man needing to find himself and realizing that he cannot go it alone. Rocky V? It's largely forgotten or mocked, and maybe it should be, but it does have some interesting elements. It's interesting to see how Rocky, once stripped of his wealth and fame, has to go back to his roots. And it's interesting to see how he does that by clinging, idiot that he is, to the glory of boxing instead of the family that stood by him through thick and thin. He takes up a protege, much like he always wanted Mickey to do for him. He finds in Tommy Gunn a second chance at glory. Ignoring his true son, he trains an ungrateful surrogate. Eventually, Rocky comes to learn that it is his real family that means more than glory in the ring, denounces and defeats his traitorous protege, and goes home to live a well-earned quiet life with those he loves. But what gave him the strength to rise and destroy his enemies, both personal and physical? Well, Adrian. Always Adrian. She confronts him, explaining to him that he's losing his family, that he's worth more than a page in a sports history book, or the money they've lost. Money doesn't matter. Glory doesn't matter. Nothing matters unless they have one another and look after what's truly important. The point of the movie, in spite of all its flaws, is that the soul of the man who fights is those who give him the heart to fight. Rocky is nothing without his family, and is especially nothing without Adrian in his corner. And that's the point of the entire franchise. I mean, I know I'm hammering on this, but I can't help it. Critical Drinker missed the point when he said Rocky wouldn't lay down and die without Adrian, Mickey, Apollo, and Pauly. Because of course he would. He hasn't done anything but that in any movie to this point. Rocky needs direction and heart and finds that in those he loves. Once those people are removed, he is directionless. Adrift. And that brings us to Rocky Balboa. This is a mostly good, though forgettable, retread of the first film, with some really good parts. I especially love that he reconnects with Marie from the first movie as a father figure, and that it never once becomes romantic. What I don't like is that Rocky dresses down his estranged son as if he has a right to expect that said estranged son should just do better and not have any hard feelings about past events. Rocky talks about getting up and fighting against unfavorable odds no matter what, while at the same time forgetting that he himself has never been able to get up and do anything of worth unless he had the support of his loved ones. And he says these things to a son he has barely spoken to for years. At least when Mickey came to Rocky in the first movie, he came hat in hand with some humility. When Mickey railed at Rocky in the second movie to get up and fight hard, he at least had an ongoing relationship with the man. But this felt like even Stallone missed what had made Rocky great in the first place, and Stallone just wanted an Oscar moment. It may be a very good speech, but it's a little hypocritical. But then Rocky reconnects with his heart and goes on to fight bravely. Which brings us to Creed. Yes, I agreed that Creed 1 was a lazy rehash of Rocky 1 with a few modern updates, but I 100% disagree that Rocky wouldn't want to give in and accept his diagnosis. Rocky at this point in his life is a tired old man. He's lost Mickey, Apollo, Pauly, and most important, Adrian. Yeah, he dealt with some of that in Balboa, but at least he still had Pauly for whatever that was worth. And Rocky rising to have one last fight to truly get it out and get it out of his system was a wonderful return to the character. Stallone gave one of his best performances in years in that movie. When Adonis Creed comes to him, giving him the chance to regain his glory and make up for the past by training his dead friend's son, he refuses. And then accepts, but only out of love and duty. But when he gets the cancer diagnosis, he's finally done. Deflated. Done. Mickey is gone, Adrian is gone, Pauly is gone, Apollo is gone. Everyone he has ever loved or who has loved him is gone, and he just wants to lay down and go to be with them. You can see that in how he sits at Adrian's grave to read to her, beautifully echoing the scene in Rocky II where she taught him to read. You can see it in how he goes through the motions of his life while putting on a smile that most days he just doesn't feel. He has dealt with his grief, but it is always there, the clawing creature that steals a little bit of his heart every day as he tries to find the strength he knows his dearly departed would want him to have. And so this is where I fundamentally disagree with the drinker. Rocky is not retconned here. He is as true to his core as he has ever been. Rocky is a man who needs his friends and family to shore up the inner strength he already has. He needs them to patch up and weld together the broken bits of the man he is until he stands tall and shining in the sun. They hold him up. They give him something he needs to become greater than his parts. In short, it's like Rocky said,
I don't know, without you being here, probably I wouldn't be here either, you know?
Rocky always does stand and fight against all odds. Okay, yeah, that's true. And he makes others better by giving to them more than he has to give. But a glass cannot refill itself. It can only be filled. Rocky has always given and struggled and needed to be refilled. Once there is no one there to refill his heart, how could you expect this man who, from the very first, was a bum who had given up on life, to do anything other than give up on life? When you have nothing left to fight for, no one to fight for, the battle seems meaningless. So when Adonis tells him that he will only fight if Rocky fights, well, that's perfectly in keeping with the man we have known since day one. Though every one of us must stand and fight in a metaphorical ring of our own, we are made up of the experiences and pieces that forged us, and Rocky was forged through fire, tempered by the sure hand of those who had supported him through the roughest of times, especially Adrian. Before he had her, he was giving up on life, so how can you expect him to do otherwise without her? And that's why I think the drinker missed the point of Rocky. But what are your thoughts on the Rocky series? How did it affect you? Am I way off base? Is the drinker right? Are you looking forward to Creed 3? Let me know in the comments, and if you want more videos like this, like, subscribe, ding that bell, and as always, happy viewing!